Friends, welcome to our seventh session on the concept of supply. Quickly, I am sharing the screen with you. Just give me a minute for that. Previous class, we are discussing about the concept of deemed supply, but once again, I would like to recapitulate the definition of supply, then we'll again go to the concept of deemed supply. So, yeah. So friends, broadly, we have this idea that supply includes supply for consideration. Yeah, this is about deemed supply. I was trying to show you the definition of supply. Just give me a moment. Yeah, this is the definition of supply. Earlier we have discussed many examples also you have taken. And you already know it is an inclusive definition. It includes sale, transfer, barter, exchange, license, rental, lease, disposal, made or agreed to be made for a consideration. So all these type of transactions are included in supply. And one more thing is important is the consideration. And in that context also we have discussed consideration did not flow from the recipient itself. Consideration may flow from the third party. And consideration includes, consideration excludes two things. Can anyone tell me what are the things will, even if it is received, will not be regarded as consideration? Consideration excludes two things. Can anyone recall? Well, let me help you. One is subsidy received from central government. Second is subsidy received from state government. So even if these are the two kinds of consideration which is received by the recipient, still for the purpose of supply, for the purpose of GST, that will not be taken as consideration. And one more thing we have to keep in mind, supply should be in the course or furtherance of business. That is also important. And we know importation of service for a consideration, whether it is in the course or furtherance of business or not, it will be always regarded as supply. And there are certain activities which are specified in Schedule 1, which are made or agreed to be made without consideration. That will also be regarded as the supply. These are few basic things we have discussed. Many examples we have taken. Okay, we have analyzed thoroughly the definition of supply. What supply includes, what supply excludes. Yeah, that let me once again tell you. This again, you can remember supply includes supply for consideration, importation of services, whether or not in the course of furtherance of business. It also includes certain supply which are without consideration, Schedule 1, or we can call it as the deemed supply. Last class we were discussing about that. There are activities which are to be treated as supply of goods or supply of services. Either they can be treated as supply of goods or supply of services. That is also discussed. And there is a negative list also, which are neither supply of goods nor supply of services. Okay, this is again, you can see the list of activities which are included in supply: sale, barter, sale, transfer, barter, exchange, license, rental, lease, disposals. Consideration and how it is in the course of furtherance of business. We have also understood what is business. All these examples we have taken. What is the meaning of taxable person? That is one more thing. Supply has to be a taxable supply. It has to be made by a taxable person. That is also important. Those things we have discussed. The concept of deemed supply, which are discussed in Schedule 1, that we are discussing in the previous class. We have discussed what is the meaning of related person. Okay, in various situations we have seen, even if there is no consideration, but transaction is between related person, they will be treated as supply. The concept of distinct person also we have discussed. Yeah, branch transfers, stock transfer, branch transfer. We have seen this example, right? So stock transfer between two units with single registration will not be considered as supply. But if you see the previous slide, it talks about the transaction between different locations with separate GST registration, the same entity, okay, will be treated as supply. Okay, there are two different registration numbers, entities same and registration numbers. Instead of PAN based, there can be two registration numbers. So in that case, stock transfer or branch transfer shall be treated as supply. But if the two units are carrying a single registration, then they will not be considered as supply. This concept we have discussed in previous class. I think up to this, concepts are clear to you. Now, today we'll start with this part. Supply of goods or services or both between employer and employee. In income tax, you must have studied the concept of employer and employee. That is extremely important when we discuss the income under the head salaries. You know, it is very important that the employer-employee relationship should exist. Now, what will happen if there is a supply between this relationship? It may be supply of goods, it may be supply of services. It may flow from employer to employee, or it may flow from employee to employer also. Whether it will be regarded as supply, consequently, whether it will attract that GST. So that is the concept we are going to discuss. Okay. As you know, when we are discussing the definition of related persons, at that time we know that employer and employee are related persons. However, services provided by an employee to the employer in the course or in relation to his employment is not a supply. Employer is doing some, as per terms of the job, employee must be carrying out some activities, must be doing something. Can we call it as the supply of services? Answer is no. The services which are provided by the employee to employer will not be considered as supply of services. Okay, it will not be considered as supply. Consequently, it is not supply of services. It will not attract GST. Okay, so this is provided the third schedule to CGST Act. If you refer to the third schedule to CGST Act, you can see these activities. Now, one more concept. So first thing what we discussed, services provided by employer to employee. Now, gift by employer to employee. Employer is giving certain gift to an employee. Schedule 1, para 2, we have to refer. Right. It says that gifts of 2 rupees 50,000 in value in a financial year. In one financial year, maximum amount is 50,000. By an employer to employee shall not be treated as supply of goods or services or goods. It shall not be treated as or supply of goods or services or goods. How much? Maximum up to 50,000 in value in a financial year. So if employer gives some gift to employee, if it is within 50,000, we have to add up all the gifts which are made during the financial year. The entire financial year limit is 50,000. If it is within 50,000, then this is not a supply. Okay. However, gifts of value more than rupees 50,000 made without consideration. However, gift is always without consideration. Okay, if that kind of gift is made and the value is more than 50,000, it is a supply. And once it is a supply, it will be subject to GST. But you have to see whether the gift is made in the course or furtherance of business. If it has some nexus, some connection with the business, then definitely it will amount to supply. Okay, even if it is paid by the employer. Hope it is clear to you. What is gift? That has not been defined in the law. So you have to understand it in common parlance. Gift is, it is without consideration and it is given voluntarily. Voluntarily gift must have been given. Gift cannot be demanded as a matter of right by the employee. And the employee cannot move to court of law for obtaining a gift. Okay, employee cannot file a case that I deserve a gift, I should be given. That should not happen. Gift is a voluntary transaction, it has to be given voluntarily by the employer. If that is so, in a financial, we will see what is the total value of the gift. Up to 50,000 is not a supply. Beyond 50,000 is supply, but if it is in the course or further and services. Is it clear? Yes or no? Hope it is clear to you. Now, when we are discussing about various transactions between employer and employee, one more item let us cover, that is about the perks or perquisites. Perquisites by employer to employee. So employee has got maybe having several components of its salary. There might be some basic salary, there might be some allowances, there might be some perquisites. All these things forms a part of salary. All of these things also forms a part of CTC or cost to company. Already we have discussed that the services provided by the employee to employer in the course or in relation to his employment is outside the scope of GST, that will not be treated as a supply by employee to employer. That is not a supply. And since that is not a supply, payments made by the employer to the employee in terms of contractual agreement entered into between the employer and employee will also not be subjected to GST. Okay. So payments mean the salary payments. Salary payment will not be subject to GST. Okay, because the supply of services by the employee to employer is not also coming within the purview of GST. But let us think of some other perquisites. Let us say membership of a club, health and fitness center, etc. If these are provided free of charge, these are in fact perquisites. Okay, if these are provided, if they are provided to all employees by the employer, it will again not be subjected to GST. This type of perquisites, if all the employees are given a club membership, health card or fitness center membership free of cost, that is definitely perquisite. That's a non-monetary benefit provided by employer to employer. That will also not be subjected to GST. Same is also true if the free housing is provided to employees. When the same is provided in terms of contract, the terms of contract specifies that the employer will be providing free house to the employee, and accordingly employer provides it, then this will not be treated as a supply. Okay, it should form a part of, you can say, a part and parcel of the CTC or cost to company. Hope it is clear. Transaction between employer and employee. Yeah. Now, having understood the concept of supply in the context of employer-employee relationship, now it is also important for us to understand the same thing in the context of principal and agent relationship. Okay. Who is a principal, who is an agent? You must be having some idea. Friends, supply of goods by a principal to his agent without consideration, where the agent undertakes to supply such goods on behalf of the principal, is to be considered as supply. I repeat, it should be supply of goods. As we are discussing about goods, please find it. We have some services we'll be discussing separate, not right now. If goods are supplied by the principal to his agent without consideration, and what agent is doing? Agent is undertaking to supply such goods on behalf of the principal. The principal is supplying to agent. Agent himself will supply. Let us say agent is going to sell. How is selling? On behalf of principal. If that is so, even if it is without consideration, Without consideration means without consideration between principal and agent. Principal is giving it to the agent without consideration, and agent is selling. Agent may be receiving some consideration. That doesn't matter. So agent has undertaken to supply such goods on behalf of the principal. Agent is selling it on behalf of the principal. That is considered as supply. That is supply. Similarly, supply of goods by an agent to his principal. First case, what we have seen, principal was supplying to agent. Second case, what we are discussing about, agent is supplying to his principal. And here also without consideration. Okay, agent is supplying to the principal without consideration. And where the agent undertakes to receive such goods on behalf of the principal. Meaning, agent has undertaken that goods will be received by him. So agent will receive goods. What he will do? He will transfer it to the principal, and that is what he is doing. And for that thing, he is not charging any consideration. Okay. So supply of goods by an agent to his principal without consideration, where agent has undertaken to receive such goods on behalf of the principal, he is also considered supply. So in both the situation you have seen, we are talking about goods. Goods are first case transferred from principal to agent. Second case by agent to principal. In both the cases, there is no consideration, but they will be treated as supply. Okay. Now, if you analyze what we discussed, we are discussing only about supply of goods, not about supply of services. Okay. And we have now understood the supply of goods between principal and agent without consideration is also supply. But the supply of services between principal and agent, or that means from agent, principal to agent, or by agent to principal, both the way. Supply of services between principal and agent and vice versa would require consideration to be considered as supply. If coming to services, goods, it is clear, even if it is without consideration, it is a supply. But if it is a service, then there has to be certain consideration. If there is no consideration, that will not be regarded as. Is it clear to you? Okay. Let me try to explain you. One second. First, we are talking about goods. Let us say principal and agent. Goods are supplied. No consideration. And what agent will do? Agent may sell it. Agent has undertaken. Agent has undertaken to supply it on behalf of principal. Okay. So in this case, this is we're talking about goods. And in the other way means agent has undertaken to receive goods and he is supplying to principal. This is again no consideration. This is also supply. And both the cases we are talking about goods. So it is clear to you that when goods are transferred between principal to agent or to agent to principal, even if no consideration is involved, where agent has undertaken to receive goods on behalf of principal, or agent has undertaken to sell goods or to supply goods on behalf of the principal, then that's supply. But when we are talking about services, now you have to keep in mind, this will be treated as supply only when there is consideration. The moment it is not goods, let us say, if it is services, what is important is consumption. Okay. It may be from principal to agent or to agent. Is it clear to you? Supply of services between principal to agent and vice versa would therefore require consideration to be considered as supply under GST. Now, these things we are discussing, in fact, the para 3 of Schedule 1. Okay, now whether an item is covered under para 3 of Schedule 1 or not, we'll be discussing few more points related to that. Okay. Now the deciding factor, whether it will be supply or not, is whether the invoice for further supply of goods on behalf of principal is being issued by the agent or not. So first case we have seen, goods are received by the agent and agent will be supplying. Now agent is supplying, agent must be issuing some invoice. Now here the key factor is that whether the invoice for further supply of the goods on behalf of principal is being issued by the agent or not. In other words, what is crucial point is whether or not the agent has the authority to pass or receive the title of goods on behalf of principal. Okay. If agent has got some authority, that means agent is receiving title of goods and he is transferring. So that is definitely a supply. Where invoice is issued by an agent to the customer in the name of the principal, then such agent will not come under the ambit of para 3. Agent is issuing, but in the name of principal. Agent is issuing invoice in the name of principal. That means what? That agent doesn't have title of goods. That means actually goods are not transferred. Okay, agent might be providing a service, but goods are not transferred to the agent. Agent is not giving his own invoice. Agent is giving invoice in the name of the principal. Similarly, when goods are procured by the agent on behalf of the principal and invoiced in the name of the agent, okay, agent is, goods are procured by the agent on behalf of the principal and is invoiced in the name of the agent, then further provision of such goods by the agent to principal would be covered under part 3. Part 3 means will be covered under para 3. Para 3 means what is happening here? Agent is receiving goods and he is supplying to the principal in his own invoice. That means what is happening here? So this is a supply. That shows that agent has got the title of the goods and he's transferring the title to the principal. So that will be regarded as such. So these critical aspects, please keep it in the mind. Let us quickly discuss, we'll be discussing few more cases relating to this principal and agent. Okay, now you please decide in this situation what will happen. Let us say past situation, past case I'm narrating before you. Just have a look at the slide also. A appoints B to procure certain goods from market. Okay, A is appointing B. So you must have understood now. A is the principal, B is the agent. B's job is to procure certain goods from market. B identifies various suppliers who can provide goods as desired by A and asks the supplier G to send the goods and issue invoices directly to A. Okay, so B is identifying the supplier. He has identified supplier, name is G, and G will be directly sending the invoice to the A. The question is that will it be treated as a supply between B to A? B is the agent, A is the principal. Can anyone
No,
share?
sir.
No, it is quite clear. It is directly supplied by G to A. Okay, so in this case, what will happen? It will not be treated. So if you analyze in this scenario, B is only acting as a procurement agent. He is not having title of it. He is no way involved himself in the supply of receipt of the goods. Hence, in accordance with the provisions of this act, he is not an agent of A for supply of goods. He is providing some services, that's different. But he's not involved in supply of goods. Okay, so that it will not be considered that we have supplied certain goods to him. I think this situation is clear to you. One more example I'm giving you. Minutely observe these cases. Mrs. T is a banking company and it appoints M, who is an auctioneer, to do some auction, to auction certain goods. The auctioneer arranges for the auction and identifies the potential bidders. So bank might be having some assets. He wants to, let us say, encash those assets. Then what it can do, it has appointed a auctioneer. Auctioneer are supposed to auction the assets, find out the bidders. The highest bid is accepted and the goods are sold to the highest bidder by T. So T is selling to the highest bidder. The invoice for supply of goods is issued by Mrs. T to the successful bidder. Okay, now T is issuing invoices to the bidder. Okay, now is there any supply between M and bidder? M is the auction, or it is supply between T and the bidder? What is your opinion? Supply by T to the successful bidder, or it is supply by M to the successful?
Sir, invest to T.
It is by
Sir,
T.
invest.
Invoices are issued by T, so it is supplied by T. Okay, in this scenario, auctioneer is merely providing the auctioning services. He has no role played in supply of the goods. Okay, so M is not an agent of Mrs. T for supply of goods. Okay, M is only providing certain services. Now, one more situation I'm showing you right now. GT is an artist. He appoints GM, auctioneer, to auction his painting. GT arranges for the auction and identifies potential bidders. The highest bid is accepted and the painting is sold to the highest bidder. Okay, so artist is GT, auctioneer is GM. GM is arranging the auction. GT is arranging the auction and identifying the bidders. The highest bid accepted is to be sold to the highest bid. The invoice for supply of painting is issued by GM. Oh, invoices are issued by who? GM. The auctioneer is issuing the invoices. And you know, invoicing is a crucial factor to decide whether title goods are transferred, whether it is supply or not. It is issued by GM on behalf of GT, but in his own name. That means invoices are issued by GM in his own name. And the painting is delivered to the successful. Yeah, now in this case, you have to tell me, so many things you have discussed, you have to tell me that whether there is any supply between the GM and the successful bidder. GM is the auctioneer. He is raising invoice. Tell me.
Sir, it will be a supply.
It could be a supplier. Okay. Now, that is what analyzed here. In this scenario, GM is not merely providing auctioning service, but he is supplying the painting on behalf of GT to the bidder and has authority to transfer the title of the painting on behalf of GT. Okay, so this scenario is covered in para 3 of Schedule 1, meaning this is a supply, deemed supply. Hope you have understood the concepts. Okay, so we have understood few situations related to principal agent transactions. Few more things we'll be also discussing. Now, one more typical kind of agency is that carrying and forwarding agent. They undertake the carrying and forwarding activities, or you can say commission agent. They also undertake certain activities for a commission. They take possession of the goods from the principal and they issue invoice on his own name. In such case, the carrying and forwarding agent is an agent of the principal for supply of goods. Because, as you know, the crucial point is invoicing. Here, invoices are raised by whom? The agent, carrying and forwarding agent, or the commission agent himself is raising invoice. Therefore, that will be treated as supply, and that is supply of goods. And in fact, they take the position of the goods. That means they acquire the title, they transfer the title. Whether they are disclosing or not disclosing the name of the principal is immaterial in this kind of situation, because they are raising the invoice. Is it clear to you? Hope you have understood this. One more situation we'll see. Okay, this thing I request some of you please read it out. One more case like. Can anyone read it? Some of you please unmute and read it out. I think you were seeing the slide, must have gone through the situation. Ravi sells agricultural produce by utilizing services of Kavi. So Ravi is selling and Kavi is acting as agent. Kavi is a commission agent for the agricultural produce marketing committee as per the Agricultural Produce Marketing Committee Act of the state. Okay, APMC Act, that is popularly called. So Ravi sells through its agent Kavi. Kavi identifies the buyer and sells the agricultural produce on behalf of Ravi, for which it charges a commission to Ravi. As per APMC Act, the commission agent is the person who buys or sells the agricultural produce on behalf of the principal, or facilitates buying or selling of agricultural produce on behalf of his principal, and receives by way of remuneration, commission, or percentage upon the amount involved in such transaction. In this case, you must have understood, even if Ravi is the seller, invoices are raised by Kavi. He is the person who buys and sells. So cases where invoice is issued by Kavi to buyer, the farmer is an agent. So it will be considered supply is made by Kavi. But however, where invoices are issued by Ravi to buyer, the Ravi directly issuing to the buyer, then the commission agent Kavi doesn't fall under the category of agent covered under here, because Kavi is not supplying any goods. Invoices are raised by Ravi directly. Okay, so on the basis of this criteria, this point, that who is raising invoice, we'll be able to conclude that who is making supplier goods and who is having title of goods. Friends, there is one more typical agency which is called as Delegated Agency. Okay, they're called as DCA, Delegated Agents. They are in fact a selling agent who are engaged by the principal to assist in supply of goods and services by contacting the principal buyers. So they find out who are the buyers. Normally that is their role, but they play one more additional role. What is the additional role? The DCA is different from other agents in the sense that DCA guarantees the payments to the supplier. So DCL undertakes that buyer will make payment. If buyer doesn't make payment, the delegated agent will compensate the seller. That is the additional service they provide. Okay. In this scenario, where the buyer fails to make payment to the principal by the due date, the DCA makes payment to the principal on behalf of the buyer. This is how DCA compensates. And for this reason, for this additional activities, a commission is paid to the DCA. And this commission naturally will be higher than the commission paid to the normal agent, because DCA is taking the additional responsibility of collection. Money will also be collected. Guarantee is giving a guarantee that money will be collected. In order to guarantee timely payment to the supplier, DCA can resort to various methods, including extending short-term transaction based on loans to the buyer, paying the supplier himself, and recovering the amount from the buyer with some interest at the latter date. So that also the delegated agent can do. It may give some loan to the buyer, or it may pay the money on behalf of the buyer and later on collect the money from the buyer with some interest. The loan is to be repaid by the buyer along with the interest to the DCA as per mutually agreed rate. Now here the question will arise in which situation the services provided by DCA will be regarded as supply, or whether there is any situation where supply of goods are involved. Okay, first question arises. This is again series of questions which are addressed in circular number 73 by 47 by 2018, GST dated 5/11/2018, which is issued by the department. Various questions related to DCAs are addressed here. One by one, we'll be going through this question. Whether DCA falls under the ambit of agent under para 3 of Schedule 1 of the CGST Act. This will be discussing. Other question is there whether the temporary short-term transaction based on the loan extended by the DCA to recipient for which interest is charged by the DCA is to be included in the value of goods and services. So this DCA related questions, few other questions are also there. We'll be addressing in your next class. Okay, few other issues like imposition of services is also important. We need to consider that thing. So all these items, few more questions are also there, or cases are there. All these things will be covering in your new class. This concept supply is quite very vast. It's very inclusive concept, and it involves so much of complexities. So all of us need to go through it minutely so that we can understand the entire concept thoroughly. Thank you very much. We are going to catch up in our next class. Next session, we'll be meeting again. Thanks a lot.